To wrap up this topic, we'll continue using algebra to solve some other equations. Remember that we need to follow our general rules that we've been using. When we're trying to isolate a variable or get it by itself, we can move pieces of an equation to the other side of the equal sign, and in order to do that, we always use the opposite operation. When you have more than one step to do, it's easiest to move terms that are being added or subtracted first, and then perform any multiplication or division to isolate the variable. When we're working through these, remember that we need to make sure our units match before we start a question, and if you have intermediate calculations to do, make sure you're not rounding until your final answer. Let's work through a couple of examples. Here, we're looking at an equation that talks about weight, which is actually different than mass. Weight is actually a type of force, which is measured in the unit of newtons. Weight is equal to the mass of an object in kilograms multiplied by the acceleration due to gravity, which is 9.81 meters per second squared. We'd like to find out if an object weighs 510.12 newtons, what is its mass, and we'll find that eventually in pounds. From the information in the question, I'm told that weight is equal to the mass of the object multiplied by the acceleration of that object, and I'll substitute in what I know. I know that this object weighs 510.12 newtons. I'm trying to find the mass, so that's my unknown, and the acceleration is this constant value due to gravity, 9.81 meters per second squared. I'd like to get mass by itself, so I need to move 9.81 to the other side. Since it's being multiplied on the right side of the equation, to move it over, I divide, and that will give me the mass. When I do this in the calculator, 510.12 divided by 9.81, I find that the mass is 52. It's important to pay attention to the units. This equation gives us our mass in kilograms. Since the question asks us for pounds, I'll need to do a unit conversion here. Using your conversion factor, I know that there are 2.205 pounds in 1 kilogram. So I can do the conversion that this object must have a mass of 114.66 pounds. So some important things that we did here, we rearranged the equation to solve for an unknown, and then we paid attention to the units that the calculation would give us, and did a conversion to get to the units that we wanted at the end. In this next example, we're again going to try and calculate the mass in pounds of this cylinder below, knowing the relationship between mass, volume, and density. We know that the cylinder below is made of steel, and this steel has a density of 0.0867 pounds per cubic inch. The density equation is given here. Density equals mass over volume. From the units I'm given in the question, I know that in this case, my mass will be in pounds, and my volume will be in cubic inches. I can use this now to solve for mass. In order to do that, I need to know the other two values. I'm given the density in the question, and I'm given enough information about this cylinder to calculate the volume. So that's where we'll start. Because my density has units of pounds per cubic inch, I want to calculate my volume in cubic inches as well. So looking at the units of my cylinder, I know the diameter is 21 inches, and its height is 7 feet. I'm going to convert that 7 feet to inches. So the height is 84 inches. And I know the volume formula for a cylinder is pi r squared times the height. If my diameter is 21 inches, I know my radius is half that, or 10.5 inches. So go ahead and substitute in and calculate the volume. By substituting in your radius and your height, you should get the following answer. The volume is 29,094.28956 cubic inches. We want to take that now and find the mass. Usually we're substituting in our values into the equation and then rearranging, but in this example I'll show it to you a different way. We can take our equation, density equals mass over volume, and rearrange before we substitute in any numbers. We know we're trying to solve for mass and want to get that by itself, so we need to move this divide by volume to the other side. When I do so, I do the opposite operation, so it becomes multiplication. The density times the volume will give me the mass. Now you can substitute in your values. We know the density from the question above is 0.0867 And the volume is the value we just calculated. Remember not to round that value yet. Keep those decimal places on your calculator. And then you can do the multiplication to find your mass. 2,522.474. And since our question asked us to round to one decimal place, 2,522.5 pounds is the mass of this cylinder. Take a moment and try the final question, pause the video, and then check your answer. Following the steps to substitute in what we know, in this case the allowance, you can isolate the variable to solve for the width of this pocket, which is 1/4 inch. And you can see now that by continuing to follow the same general rules for algebra, we can solve many different types of equations.